Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Zach, and I'm back. If you've missed me, well, good for you. If you haven't, well, you probably should have. But I'm back, and we got a great show today. We're exploring some topics that are very near and dear to my heart, but we'll talk about those a little bit later. However, I can't do this alone, even though I probably should try it one of these days. So as always, I'm joined by Rafe. Rafe?
Wow, where do I start with that one? I did not see all that coming. I got to say that. So you better watch it. I may make you try to do this alone. Zach, it is great to have you back. It is good to be here again with you doing another installment. We are in the high 40s now as total number of episodes that we have done. And like I said, it's great to have you back. Those of you who are out there and listening, thank you for listening. Without you, we would be literally talking to the walls, and that ain't no good, as they say. Thanks to you, Bufnagle the podcast is a recognized global top 10% podcast. And as usual, you can contact us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, all sorts of other fun places. Hey, if you are new to the podcast, in all seriousness, welcome. We are glad you are here. We're going to ask you, give us 4 episodes or so and see if we don't give you a reason to come back for more. We're talking about a lot of different things, and surely there will be something that resonates with you. And remember, if you tell a friend to listen, you will get a free episode. And one more thing, if you're on one of those podcast machines on your phone, the Apple Podcaster piece or the Spotify, if there's a place where you can like subscribe or follow or let me know when the Buff drops new content, whatever that is, then hit that button. You can do it. We'll just wait right now. Just hit the button. Go. Ready? Hey, great. Hit that button. And that really helps us. And if you could leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that would rock as well. Those are really fun to have. And if you have something bad to say, well, just take it, write it on a slip of paper and then burn it. But we want the 5-star podcast there on Apple. Zach, you were gone for like forever and a day. It seems like it was about 4 episodes. You took a little trip, got yourself things taken care of there. Yeah, I see you've moved apartments and all sorts of other things have been going on. Harry and Bob stepped in phenomenal fashion while you were gone. So just know that as once you left, the world kept on turning, but it was not quite the same.
Yeah, that's what I've been told, but it's good to be back doing what I do best, which is rambling on for about an hour with you. One of my special skills that I put on my resume. So you get to be included in my resume. So I'm not really sure what that says about me or you, but it is a thing.
Well, it may be time to look at that resume, but we will figure that out. So you're back. And we have a topic today that you've wanted to talk about, I guess, for a while now. And this is something that I have to say, neither of us has direct experience with, but at least I don't. I don't think you do either. And that is the concept of the superhero.
Yeah, that's right. So we are talking about superheroes today. That's a very broad statement to make, but we're going to kind of break this down and talk about superheroes and their role in media and their role in what they teach us about humanity and life. I myself am a very big superhero fan. I'm a big fan of Superman, Green Lantern series, Batman, Robin, all of them, because I relate to them on some certain level that they teach me about life. And for me, that's an important thing to have in a media series, whether it's Harry Potter, whether it's comic books, whether it's Lord of the Rings. There's something about those stories that we come back to because we relate to them. And with superheroes, they kind of do them on a little bit grander stage, and we're going to be exploring that today.
Yeah, so I'm wondering then. Okay, so there's a number of things you touched on right there, and we could like take each of these little pieces and drag them around. But I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Okay, so I don't like you say you're a superhero fan. I think you're a comic book subscriber, aren't you? Don't you get some of those comic books, or you go to the comic book store now and then and get these things?
Before COVID, about once a month, I would make a trip down to the comic book store, which was about 2.5 blocks from the law school, and I would pick up whatever I needed for the month, and I would bring those home with me. I would then do my homework and then read the comics.
Thank you. I'm sure
very
I'm almost
important
to hear
note.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay. So is comic book? Did they have comic book guy like in The Simpsons? Did they have?
No, but they had guys who were knowledgeable, like about things that were coming out, and they also did a lot of board games at that shop that I went to. So there was a lot of combination between board game people and comic book people, which usually the Venn diagram between those two groups is almost a perfect circle. So
Yeah, I got you. So there's tremendous overlap there. All right. So, but for me growing up, the superheroes consisted of, and I'm sure I'm going to date myself this precisely. The interaction I had with superheroes was a TV show on Saturday morning. Well, it's two things. It was a TV show on Saturday mornings called Super Friends. All right. And it was the old Batman TV show that was on syndicated television between Gilligan's Island and the Mary Tyler Moore Show or whatever it was in the afternoons. So the Batman show was terrible. It was Burt Ward was Robin, and Batman was played by Adam West, and that's where you get the Batman song, right? That's where that one comes from, and the Biff Pow, sock.
The explanations on when something but those are taken directly from comic book pages. They have those explanations, and there's
those
English
things, those words in the big explosion stars, right? You can't see their hands. They're that's what it looks like. And okay, so that was that. And some of my friends had comic books, and some of my friends actually subscribed to serial comics. But I never did that. The only comic books, Zach, I ever read really that were comic books at that age was at the music store where we took music lessons, I took some drum lessons and guitar lessons, and that's why I'm such an avid musician today. But when my sister was practicing piano, I sat in the waiting room and I read Richie Rich comics. Do you know who he is?
I have heard of him.
Yeah, he was a very rich. He was a rich little kid. Okay, and it was like if you took affluence to this kind of Scrooge McDuck kind of place where he would like bathe in champagne and just things that were always over the top. And I don't remember if he got into trouble and solved crime or what it was, but there was Richie Rich, and then the Archies were kind of a thing with Archie, Veronica, Jughead, and I forget the other guys, and they were there at I don't know, Archie High. Where'd they go to school? Do you remember that, Zach?
Riverdale, I believe.
Yeah. Either that or that's from the movie Grease. Anyway, that's me and comic books. All right. So I have nothing like the background you have, and certainly with the media that are out today with all the movies.
Yeah. I mean, now since 2005, and even before that, in the 1980s, there was a couple Batman movies and there were a couple Superman movies. Those weren't really as popular as we see as the Avengers movies or the Iron Man movie or whatever new flashy movie came out recently. I'm not sure which one it was, but those are
it's the girl one. It's the
Black Widow. Black Widow. Those
right.
are the top box office success, and that was not seen in the 80s and the 90s when you were growing up and you were in your beginning adulthood years. I mean, there was more of like the action adventure, James Bond, other type of stories were kind of the focus. Now the focus is these superhero stories that are the big box office success that everyone crowds to see and everybody talks about on social media.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple things about those. And you mentioned, I was thinking about when we went to the theater. All right. Our theater in Hartford, Wisconsin, there was one theater in town with one screen when I was a kid, and it showed a movie at 7:00 and another one at 9 o'clock, I think it was. Or maybe it was 6 and 9 or 7. I think it was 7 and 9. And they had like at 7 o'clock was like the family picture, whatever was going around, like
Toy Story.
Well, it would have been Toy Story, but back then it was something like Escape to Witch Mountain or some Disney film, Winnie the Pooh kind of thing. And then the kind of edgier films showed at 9 o'clock. And those were things like, the James Bond movie, maybe things that were rated a little bit more extreme, because that was 9 o'clock. That was pretty late. Right. And that was the movies. So we never went to the movies. It wasn't a thing that we did as a family. So the idea that there are now dozens of superhero stories that are, I guess, worthy of putting them on the big screen, to me is something I still can't get my head around. And if you would talk to your grandfather about this, he'd be like, superheroes, he'd be like, that's like Superman, right? I mean, that would, Superman would be the superhero.
Yeah, and Superman, in a way, is the quintessential superhero. Despite the fact that he's an alien from a different planet, millions of light years away, and he crash landed in Kansas. But he crash landed in Kansas, which makes him a pretty darn good American superhero, if you ask me.
Well, I think that's where you're supposed to land, right? I mean, that's the only other place I think probably is Iowa, if you're going to land there. But Kevin Costner was already there, probably playing baseball, is my guess. So that's that. So Iowa is taken. So you got Superman's living in Kansas, and he comes. Okay, so this kind of lays out, because he's, like you said, he's the quintessential superhero. He lays out the formula for the superhero, right? He's essentially infinitely powerful, and he has one flaw, one Achilles heel, whatever you want to call it. There's one thing about him. In this case, it's kryptonite. In fact, that's even in the lexicon now. You can say, well, chocolate chip cookies are my kryptonite, or you can say that whatever it is, something that slays you. It used to be the Achilles heel, but now it's kryptonite.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we used to have these references to the Greeks and the Romans, which we've talked about many times before, with Achilles heel, or we would reference the labors of Hercules or the siege of Troy. Those type of things have now been replaced with these superhero-esque analogies, specifically kryptonite being the big one. Additionally, a fun fact about Superman is he is also the portrayal of one of my favorite philosophers is in quotes. I like this idea from this philosopher,
That's fine.
Friedrich Nietzsche, and the Ubermensch.
Yeah, so Ubermensch is the ultimate man, right?
Yeah, he's like the supreme being, and Superman, in a way, is that character in media. All being powerful, can be God if he wanted to, can control the world if he wanted to. This above everybody else being in the world.
So he would fulfill the role of all powerful, right? And he can do essentially anything he wants. Like in one of the Superman movies from the 70s, Christopher Reeve made time go backwards by flying around the Earth so fast it spun. I didn't really understand the physics of that one. We'll get Bob to talk about that. But he made the Earth spin backwards so that Lois Lane came back to life, and then he went back and saved her or something like that. But he was all powerful, right? But if you're going to fulfill those, the Ubermensch, if you're going to fulfill the role of the Godhead, you have to have infinite power, but you also have to practice infinite mercy and infinite justice. And that's where things get a little tricky. Superman tried that they probably came the closest to doing that. But you see problems with that in other superheroes. Batman, for example, is people always asking, is he being vengeful, or is he being a vigilante, or is he following the rules or not following the rules?
Is he a hero? Is even a question that's been asked about Batman, because he is a guy who works outside the law, who has no power, and has tasked himself with doing all these things, when Bruce Wayne, his alter ego, is flawed as a human, extremely flawed as a human, but yet his persona that he puts on under the mask is this hero. And that brings up my favorite thing about superheroes is, what can they teach us about humanity? Is it okay to have a flawed hero?
Well, that has been a thing, and I don't remember if this was in college or something I just read on the back of a matchbook cover. I don't remember, but so there's this idea of the Christian hero. Okay, is well, obviously the quintessential Christian hero is Christ. Okay, but that hero shows up in a lot of other places. It shows up in King Arthur. It shows up in Lord of the Rings. It shows up in
Narnia.
In Narnia and in Star Wars, where you have this person who seems to be of low birth, who is actually nobility, who rises up and saves the day. And then the important thing at the end, he is given the opportunity for power, but walks away. Right. And those are those things that we've seen. And Batman fits a number of those, not necessarily the same way, but some of those things. But lately, over the last 150 years or so, the hero character has always had a character flaw. And Batman has that, right? He's not the man when he doesn't wear the mask that he wants to be, that he is when he does wear the mask.
Yeah. And that's and it's the same thing that you see with Tony Stark, who's Iron Man.
Okay. So who's Tony Stark and Iron Man? So tell me this. I kind of know. I just want to make sure.
So Tony Stark and Iron Man is in a way a parallel to Batman and Bruce Wayne, and they're published by different comic book publishers. Iron Man and Tony Stark is Marvel, and then Batman is with DC Comics.
All right, so hold on, making a list.
Comics if you want to get really particular.
I'm making a list. Okay, so DC is Batman.
Yep.
All right, and Marvel is Iron Man. Okay, and Tony Stark is an inventor guy, right? And he's very rich.
Yeah, so his father, Howard Stark, was a guy who invented stuff before Tony was born. It's kind of his story. And then Tony kind of took that mantle, and he's inventor. He was an arms dealer. He has all this money and power and access to things that normal people wouldn't have. Very similar to Bruce Wayne with Wayne Enterprises.
All right, so he runs around, but he has a couple things. He has a character flaw because he's kind of an arrogant son of a bitch, right?
Yep.
Right. And then, but he also has this thing. He has this android piece or this mechanical part, this piece that's not human.
Yeah. So he had an issue where shrapnel got stuck in his chest, and to prevent the shrapnel from going into his heart and killing him, he designed a device that prevented the shrapnel from killing him.
So like a magnet thing, right?
Yeah, a magnet that prevents the shrapnel from getting in there. And, well, if shrapnel gets in your heart, you're probably going to die. I don't really care who you are.
Well, I'm not a cardiologist, but I play one on TV, right? It's so, and they couldn't just take the shrapnel out. He had to have this.
Well, when he put it in originally, he was not in a position to get adequate care from a hospital. So,
all right, and then he put it in, and then it was stuck, and you can't do it now.
If you would take it out, then you would have to put another one in. So there's a lot of things at play there.
Okay, but this thing is so it sits right in the middle of his chest, and it kind of glows, right? All right, but there's probably if I was teaching 7th grade literature right now, I'd say there's probably a metaphor here about him doing a thing that protects his heart from damage, right? And that probably reflects one of his character flaws is his inability to relate well to women. Is that true?
I would say it would relate well to others. He grew up affluently. He grew up with money and success and extremely brilliant and smart. He had all of the things that you would want to have, except his ability to develop and maintain relationships. Yeah, he could talk to any girl he wants because he's a playboy, billionaire, multimillionaire, genius person. That's great, but if you can't develop and cultivate relationship with people, what are you really doing? And if you're doing that, then you become very alone.
So he's kind of a reclusive guy. But he's not. I'll take that back. He's not reclusive. He's very affluent, and he is the kind of person everybody wants to be around. A lot like Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
And Batman. So do people know that Tony Stark is Iron Man?
Yes, that is public knowledge.
That is public
in
knowledge.
The universe,
okay,
and in our universe.
Yeah, I know it too. That's right. Okay, so you got Batman. He's got a sidekick. Iron Man. Does he have a sidekick? Does he have a helper dude?
I'm going to answer that as no. I can answer that as yes as well, but that gets us into a lot deeper of a rabbit hole that I don't think we want to go down.
Okay, so but now there's this thing out there. There's like you said, DC and Marvel. DC is does that stand for something or just DC?
Originally, it standed for Detective Comics.
It's standard for Detective Comics.
It stood.
It's there we go.
I'm sorry. I didn't know this was an English class.
That was vacation. No, it's all good. Okay, so you have Detective Comics, you have Batman, and then you got Iron Man. Now, when I was a kid, the superheroes on Super Friends were Batman, Robin,
Yep.
Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman.
Who was the butt of the joke?
Yeah, he was always left behind, and then there were the two goobers, the teenage kids who somehow for some reason they were let in there. But occasionally there would be other people who would show up. Okay, like one of my favorite episodes is there's this computer that I didn't realize that at the time. It was one of these dystopic stories. All right, where somebody built a computer that's going to like run the whole world, and then a mouse got loose, and inside the computer was big, like the size of a building, and the mouse got inside the computer and started chewing on wires. And of course, what that did is that made planes crash, because that's what happens when mice chew wires in computers. The planes started crashing, and the automatic school robot thing gave the wrong lesson and told you how to bake a pie using parts from a motorcycle or something. I forget what it was. All right. And then they had to call in Plastic Man. Do you remember Plastic Man?
Yes.
And he could stretch, and there's this scene where he takes his hand and he reaches like through all these, it's a computer, so it has like pipes in it, right? So he's reaching through all the pipes, and he stretches and he grabs the little mouse who's in the corner, and he gently takes him out, and then they let him go into the field because they were all really nice. But that was one of those cameos by somebody other than those main four guys. So Batman, Robin, Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Are they DC or are they Marvel, or is there?
They were all DC properties.
So I didn't realize I was being fed
indoctrinized.
Yeah, that's what I was. Okay, all right. So there's this thing now that is getting closer to Super Friends, and it's like Avengers, right? Is that a what is
so the
that?
Avengers would be the Marvel equivalents of Super Friends, but Super Friends was a watered down TV version of when you grew up of the Justice League.
Oh, you are right. It was the Justice League. That's right. Justice. I'm writing this down. Justice League. All right. And yeah. Okay. So what is this Avengers Infinity War? Or like but at one point, like Captain America's over on the Marvel side, right?
Correct.
Right. But he and Tony Stark are getting in fights with each other or something?
So there is a arc called Civil War, which ends up splitting the heroes of the Marvel universe against each other, based on differing political ideologies, more or less. And the movie adaptation of the version pits Iron Man against Captain America.
Wow. Do we know who wins, or does it? Can we be okay? Spoiler alert. Zach's gonna tell me who wins the Infinity War. What?
Well, okay. So Civil War. Captain America won. It's hard. There was not really any definitive outcome. The Avengers, which was the group that they were representing holistically, split, and then they fought each other. And then Captain America was able to do his thing, but some of his guys got sent to prison, and then some of Tony's guys, Iron Man's guys, got injured. So it's really hard to tell who won, because nobody won because the team you were a part of split. You can't really win regardless of what side you choose on that.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay, that sounds...
Book of Rafe, chapter 1.
No, actually, I think that's the Book of Bible chapter something. But Lincoln said that, right? We're going to have to look that up. Somebody's going to... You know what? I think I know who's going to call me and tell me where that is. Okay, so... where does Spider-Man fit in all this?
Spider-Man is a Marvel property.
He's Spider-Man. Okay, but does he seem like he's on his own a lot? Like he's a different...
Okay, so in the early 2000s and late 1990s, Marvel was in financial trouble. So they sold some of their properties to Sony, the media company. And one of those properties that they sold was Spider-Man. Another one was X-Men. And then Marvel was actually kind of left with B-level superheroes that people weren't really familiar with at the time.
Wait! I gotta get my head around what you've just told me. So we got Marvel and DC. Marvel sells off their profitable Spider-Man dude.
Yep, and the X-Men.
And the X-Men, and to Sony, and Sony makes movies then.
Yep.
Oh wow, I did not know.
So in 2002, I believe, was the first Spider-Man movie with Peter Maguire. I believe that's
Tobey
Maguire.
So he's a very young looking guy.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a high school kid, right?
Yep.
All right, and Spider-Man gets bit by a radioactive spider. Yep. Everyone knows that, and then he gets in spider powers like a Spidey sense. But the rest of it, he kind of doesn't he makes up these little things. So he makes up these things that allow him to climb up the side.
He makes up web shooters to allow him to swing across New York City. Yeah. He has the ability to kind of like grip you up a wall and climb like a spider because you're a Spider-Man. That's what you do.
Well, it does whatever a Spider-Man, unless you're Spider Pig, like from The Simpsons. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do. I love Spider Pig.
Spider Pig.
There's also a Spider Ham, but we don't really need to get into that.
Really? On The Simpsons, Spider Ham?
No. There's actually a Marvel property character, Spider Ham.
Is it a Spider Pig?
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. I can't believe they sold that off. All right, but the X-Men is a group of folks. Is these the mutants and the doctor that lives in the lab?
Yeah, a group of individuals that have some sort of supernatural mutated ability in their genome.
And they all bring them together, and they can do all sorts of things. Like they can light themselves on fire. They can shuffle cards.
Control the weather. They can control metallic objects. They can read people's minds. They can shape shift. They can turn something to freeze. They can turn something to light on fire. They can jump and teleport to places in a room, so you never really know where they are. If you can think of it, they could probably do it.
So this is where it starts becoming, to me, like you're listing these superpowers, and it starts sounding like one of these, like a Simpsons episode where like my superpower is to eat a dozen donuts on a stick or whatever it is,
That's my superpower.
That's right. So and then if like people will say, well, my superpower is the ability to remember everything in a meeting. I was like, yeah, okay, right. So, but they just get weirder and weirder and weirder. And you go from Superman, he's just super. He's like really strong. He's really fast. He pretty much has no limits except kryptonite and Lois Lane. And so he's got nothing limits him. But then the new superheroes, it's a different thing. It's like they have a special, I guess I'll say it this way. They have a special way to break the laws of physics is a way that I look at it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it starts bothering me a little bit. Like, I guess I don't have a problem with Superman, because if you're going to be above the laws of physics, you ought to be above all the laws of physics. This selective destruction of physical laws is
like the Flash, who can run at any speed he wants. You don't like that?
Well, I think he can run at any speed, but like there's all sorts of things that the XKCD comic guys would go ape over. It was like, okay, he runs so fast, but like, what about wind resistance? Right? How does he see and process that fast? How does he stop? Do his feet catch fire when he starts running that fast? If you run that fast, why is there a limit to his speed? I mean, his speed is really fast, right? Is 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second? Is that the only limit he has? Can he run as fast as light? And why is he dressed like Apollo? I mean, so all of these things.
Well, okay, if he's dressed like Apollo, because of course he's dressed like Apollo. If you are the fastest person known to man, which Greek god are you going to choose to be dressed like?
Bo Jackson.
Well, okay, yeah, that too. Apollo,
yeah, okay.
We can talk about this all day long, but superheroes, in a way, now we're going here. You did this. Superheroes are a representation of some of the Greek and Roman gods that we've talked about before, and they're just in a new light and a new media. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed since the Greeks. We've gone over this a bunch. We just have new technology, and we're slightly
okay. And let me
smarter.
say so. Okay, so let me say something about the Greeks. Okay, you know I'm a big Greek fan, and I've become more of a Greek fan over the last 45 weeks that we've been doing this show. All right, but here's the thing about the Greeks that I never really got. Okay, I think their gods suck. All right, and I got to tell you why. In general, they do. I mean, Aphrodite's kind of hot, but other than that, it's like So, here's my issue with the Greek gods. Okay, they live over on Olympus, and they kind of hang out. Did I get that right? They live on Olympus?
Mount Olympus?
Mount Olympus, yeah. So they live there and they hang out. But there's a god who's like, their stories seem so thin. Like the god really likes this chick, and he's like, I want to be with you. And she says, no, I don't want to. So he turns her like into a duck or something. And I'm like,
free duck.
Well, yeah, but I think their stories are so lame. It's not like they're like I'm learning some sort of grand truth about the history of man or like understanding.
Eventually, when you get like past the main 12, they're so watered down. They only break one thing of reality or physics. It's the same thing with the superheroes that we just talked about.
Yeah, well, you're right. So maybe that's my feel. Okay, so. Zach, I'm a Christian. All right. So when I look at the Greek gods and I see that, and I compare, like Superman is like the closest thing to the Christian ideal that you can have. And then after that, it seems to all like when we're down to like that one girl who wears blue and turns herself into fire. Is that what she does? She's an Jennifer?
Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique? She's a shape shifter, so she can look like you.
She can turn herself into a toaster or something?
No, a different person. She can turn into you, and then we'd have two yous. So that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah. So, but I just think there's like at some point you start watering the gods down, and they just become just like really good basketball players. How do I know LeBron isn't a superhero whose super skill is to play basketball and flop when he gets hit on a charge?
I mean, maybe it is.
Okay, all right. How do I know that you're not a superhero whose superpower is podcasting? Who knows? All right, I guess I have trouble with some of the superhero things, and now there are millions of them, and I just can't keep them straight. And I do find the movies a little bit. I'll say this, just like if the Greek stories, the Greek myths, were just guys running around and they said and then Zeus punched Hercules and then Hercules punched Aquarius or wherever he was. And they just punched each other all the time. I'd get a little tired of that. And I see that in in some of the Avenger movies, that's just the nonstop battles. If you are immortal, is there any courage in going into battle?
I mean, you make a good point. I mean, like that leads me to the point I was going to make about are superheroes today becoming generic? Are the stories that they're telling generic? Have we
exhausted
their potential? Like they have the ability to teach us about resilience and grief and morals and right and wrong and all of those values that we could talk about. We can go on for days about that. But are we now at the point with their representation in media where they're just they're the good guys, that's a bad guy trying to end the world, they're going to go save it?
So tell me about Thanos.
He's a bad guy who's trying to... Well, Thanos is Thanos represents the Malthusian limit, which is an economic principle about the amount of resources available to a population. And in this case, the population is the universe, and Thanos' plan is to cut the population in half, and therefore there will be enough resources available to support that population fully without anyone having to struggle with poverty or being hungry or anything bad like that.
Well, that sounds rather dystopic. Like we've never heard that story before. I wonder how that one turns out, Zach.
Well, Thanos succeeded in taking out half of the universe, and then the Avengers came back with a vengeance, and they unsnapped all of the people, and then half of the people came back into existence. And
did Thanos he just freeze them, or did Thanos just freeze them and put them in
snapped them, and then they disappeared from existence, and then the Avengers were able to unsnap, and then everyone came back. It's very, if you would see it happen, you'd be like, yeah, cool, that makes sense. But saying it out loud is this one of those things of like, really? That's what we did?
Okay, now there's another one out there, and that's this Thor and Loki guy.
Yeah, those are both Marvel properties.
Okay, so Thor's, I can understand Thor. We had Thor forever because we have, like, I'll tell you, once a week I think about Thor because it's Thor's Day, right after Wednesday, right? And after Odin's Day. And I don't know how you get Wednesday out of Odin, but...
You're Nordic.
I'm Nordic. All right, I'll be Nordic. All right, so Thor comes after Odin, and I got Thor's Day there on Thursday. And then you got Loki is his... So Loki is actually the real brother, and Thor is the adopted son.
So they're all based on Norse mythology, and then let's take Norse mythology and put it into our comic book, and now you have Thor.
Yeah, and he's got this hammer that's so heavy nobody else can lift it, but he can make it travel faster than the speed of light or something.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So they're living in this faraway place called
Asgard.
Okay, But was Loki? Are they both
Loki
sons of the king?
Loki is the adopted son of Odin, who is actually a frost giant.
Okay, might as well.
And he is also the Norse god of mischief. So that's why he's always up to no good, because he's supposed to be up to no good.
Now, did Disney buy some of this Marvel stuff? Isn't he on Disney now? Is that what's happening?
Disney bought the Marvel studios that were producing the movies and have now produced more movies and more TV shows and more stories around these heroes that we've had since the 1930s.
All right, so Loki is there, and Loki is causing a lot of mischief, and Thor comes to Earth to... Why did he... Can you help? Why did he fall to Earth?
Why did Thor fall? He was banished to Earth because he wasn't doing a very good job of being a Norse god, according to Odin. So he was banished. Because he came to Earth and he realized the flaws in his way and how to be better, and he was able to redeem himself. So it's a story of redemption.
All right, so that's good. But Loki's just he's a bad.
He's just up to no good because he's the god of mischief.
Okay, well that makes sense. I feel less like I dislike him less now, I guess, because I never liked him because I was like, he's just a bad kid. But if that's his nature, I mean, like, he is the god of mischief. He's not. How could he be mischiever? Yeah. I mean, that's not going to make any sense. Okay, all right. So, all right, Logan and the X-Men. All right, you talked at the beginning. You said a thing where you have to, like, okay, so there's this story with Westerns, okay? And in Logan, there's a lot of time spent on the movie Shane, right? There's the girl watches Shane with the Captain Picard from Star Trek, who's the old man.
Yeah, Professor X.
Yeah, so he's there and they're watching Shane. And Shane is important in Westerns because Shane is a guy who is trying to get rid of his past, but his past hangs on him like a wet blanket. And his past is that of being a bad guy. He's like, he's a killer.
There's no redemption.
He didn't get redemption. And what happens in Shane, if I understand the story right, is Shane befriends this mom and this little kid, and Shane clears the valley of the bad guys. But in order to do that, he has to step outside the law. All right. And there's a common thread about more modern American heroes. You find them in the tough guy detective. You find them in Shane. You find them in the other Westerns. It's of a guy who has to make a decision, a moral calculation between, do I do what the law says and let a bad guy get away with something, or do I step outside of the law, do what is right, and then face the punishment? All right, and that's what happened in Shane. That's what happens in the Westerns. That happens in the detective stories, and it happens. I guess it happens to Logan who is Wolverine, who is this guy who has this metal things that come out of his arms, and he stabs people and he kills them.
Yeah.
And the quote at the end of Logan by the little girl, the little eulogy she gives at his graveside is the exact quote from the movie Shane, because Logan is he's of the same type. He cannot shake his past. He can't get his redemption except through what he did.
Yeah, and the whole story of Logan, to me, is, looking outside of the comic book nature of it, is a top 10 movie of all time. In my opinion, I think that movie, from a cinematography point of view, from a storytelling point of view, from all the things that make movies great, it did. It also happens to be a comic book movie that is based on this superhero, this comic character, but he's fighting the whole time with the fact that Logan is alone. He's getting older. He's struggling with identity and all those things. And this girl comes to him who, in a way, is him when he was a kid. She has the same powers, or very similarly adjacent powers, and he takes it upon himself to get her to safety. But to get her to safety, he has to sacrifice himself. And by him sacrificing himself and letting her go and be and live a free life, he is redeemed. And he, at the end, can say that I did good.
Yeah, so it's a self-sacrifice. I mean, that's the Jesus story, right? I mean, that's what it is. You give yourself up so that others may live, and that's the heroic thing. And I think these heroes, they should have that. I mean, that's where we live. That's how we behave, and that's what, I don't know. That's what the story should have, I think. And so I'm going to have to go back and do the Logan. How long ago was that?
Logan was 2016, 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a fairly recent movie.
But he has played, I think I read today when I was prepping for this, he played that character like nearly a dozen times, I think, in a dozen different movies.
Yeah. He was in like 8 that I can think of off the top of my head.
There are that many X-Men movies.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That I can think of off the top of my head. There could be more.
Okay. Well, yeah, and in the meantime, he was playing in Les Mis. So,
and everything else that he's been in. We're talking about Hugh Jackman, who played Wolverine throughout the X-Men movie runs of the early 2000s to now.
All right, so the lesson from today, then, there's good and there's evil. There's Superman is the best superhero, and everybody else is second tier. Or what's the lesson? What do we take?
I think we need to maybe be more critical of our heroes, and not critical as in point out their flaws, but more and look at the fact that they're human as well, and they are doing things that are outside of the realm that some of us can do, and they're teaching us how to live those fuller lives and what to do and how to not be focused on self and the ego and to sacrifice for the greater good. Because at the end of the day, those heroes will lay everything on the line for their morals or for their beliefs.
Well, okay, but so Logan did that, right? Yeah. Logan is mortally wounded in the final battle to get rid of, who does he get rid of?
Bad guys.
Some bad guys, right?
Generic bad guys.
As she says in the eulogy, there are no more guns in the valley, right?
Yeah.
And so, but he does it, and it costs him his life. But if I'm like some of these other guys that are essentially invincible, I guess the question for our listeners to think about is there virtue in laying it all on the line when, how do you say it? When there ain't nothing to lose.
I mean,
right? Like if you can't get killed, I mean, big deal, right?
Yeah.
Superman at one point willingly gives up his superpowers to be with Lois.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a thing. I was like, really?
We can also look at the fact of Jonathan Kent, who is Clark Kent's adopted father from Kansas, dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Clark Kent has superpowers. You can't save everybody. There are some things outside of your control. So the things inside of your control, you put the full effort in, the full value in to be able to give back and show up. And I think that's what the beauty of superheroes is. They teach us those things in completely no stakes environments because they're written on comic book pages. They're not true stories.
Yeah.
And there's beauty in that. And there's beauty in the flaws of Batman and Iron Man and whatever other hero you want to choose. And they have those burdens that they carry with them. And they still rise to the occasion.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna leave it there. There's we ought to look for the lessons and look for the good, right, Zach? Where we can find it. And if it's and like I do like the point about being critical of them, though. We need to make sure we know, we're not just saying everything they do is good, but they are when somebody does the right thing, they ought to get credit for it. So that's it for me.
All right, that sounds fantastic. Again, thank you all for listening. I want to encourage you to go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good. Enjoy the adventure of life.